Hello, and a warm welcome to the Witches Tea Party podcast. This has been a long time coming because we have been away doing some amazing work. So, as we wait for our co host Ellen to jump on, just to let you know, it was a warm welcome from a very cold Newcastle up here in Australia. I think people think Australia is just warm and sunny all the time, and it's not, it is so cold. Now you can see the title of today. Usually we pick out at random from our witch's hat a topic to talk about. So it's just an impromptu conversation. Now, this is actually the last topic that I've got from the hat. So I knew what it's going to be about. So it's all about the ego. And I've actually written on here, because if you're like me and you've done a lot of studies into Buddhism, lots of reading of books, the ego is talked about a lot. And it's seen as an illusion. It's not real. It doesn't always serve us. And it's always kind of depicted as the bad guy. It's like, oh, you come from ego, that's ego, that's ego, that's ego. Now, recently I read, or I think it's a psychological perspective, that the ego is here to protect us. But it's in our spiritual work where we can identify how that can protect us and how that goes against us. Because then we get into that overprotective conversation, and I'm just going to let Ellen know I'm on. Where it could be overprotective and where it stops serving us on a spiritual platform. So let me try and give you an example, because I haven't prepared for this at all. So where could I give you an example of the ego? It's seen as false because you're coming from a place of, okay, if we use the word overprotective, we're literally, it can become fear, from fearful. Perhaps somebody, when we say someone dents our ego, it can be because our illusionary self-worth feels like it's been hurt. Whereas in reality, our real spiritual self doesn't react that way because it sees so much more. So I think of ego as almost like a young child. And we realize that we don't have to carry this young child around with us. It's been like our inner child healing work. And when you talk to that inner child, we listen to that inner child, there's so much programming that comes through our childhood. If we can go back into that state of mind, we can heal a lot of the work and programming that was kind of done to us. So what I mean by this is, say you're a child who was exposed to abuse when you were younger, and you grow up as an adult, you're still affected by this childhood trauma of seeing abuse. Either you become abusive yourself, and that's where the pattern stays in its cycle, or you identify that you may attract relationships into your life that are then very abusive. Or you can, there's this abuse in your life, right? So once we actually deal with the inner child and confront that and actually go into our wounding and actually say, hey, I'm going to heal my inner child, I'm going to comfort my inner child. She doesn't need to be exposed to all this shouting around you, or if you're witnessing violence or whatever happens. And the same with sexual abuse as well. You can heal that inner child, and that has a knock-on effect, a direct impact on your adult life. Now, where does ego fit into all of that? It doesn't really. Hey, Ellen's just come on board. Hello, Ellen. How are you?
Oops.
Ellen, are you there?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you. How are you going?
I'm good, goddess. How are you?
I am so good, thank you. I've just done a little 5 minute intro as to the ego because it's the last topic in our hat.
Oh.
And I actually wrote on here, ego. Ah! And I was just giving an intro as to kind of like what is the ego? It's kind of depicted as this kind of bad thing in our life, like, oh, that's some ego, that's really bad. And I was trying to give a different
Mm.
perspective on ego is actually there psychologically to protect us and help us
Yes.
survive.
Mm-hmm.
But then we can identify when something comes from ego, it's usually false
Mm-hmm.
compared to our kind of spiritual awareness. So if I was trying to use the example of if somebody kind of dents our ego, it's because of our false sense of self-worth has been hurt. Whereas when
Mm-hmm.
we come from real spiritual truth, we can see a lot more than that. So it's like, oh, actually you're projecting, or that's actually your issue. That's, I don't actually get, like, I have so much self-love and self-worth that I don't feel hurt by that. If I was living in ego, I would, So
Mm.
it's actually really easy to explain once you get into it. Any thoughts, please? Help me out here, sister.
Yeah, it's actually really, really funny because that's exactly the stuff that a lot has been coming up the last week since my little journey into the spiritual realms. And I remember thinking, like, we have these kind of panic attacks, this anxiety attack. And I remember asking Spirit, I said, what really is this panic attack or this anxiety attack when you're going through, say, an intense healing process or an intense awakening? And the message that Spirit said to me, this is your ego trying to protect you. And so the ego's job is to ultimately protect you and to also help guide you and navigate you through the physical world of form. When
Yeah,
ego becomes toxic is when you, the spiritual being, the powerful spiritual being that you are, identifies with your ego as you, and the material world as you and your source, and you give your power away and you get caught up in that voice in your head as you. That's when the ego can kind of start to run and take over the show, and then it comes into like separation and reaction to the material world, and then fear and lack and scarcity and all those sorts of things. So ultimately, when you wake up and you become aware and you stop
yeah,
identifying with your ego and the voice in your head as you, and you become present, that's when the ego then can take its original purpose and its job, helping to support and navigate you through the physical world as a high vibrational spiritual being. So that's something, because often people go, oh, ego, bad, 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 but then that's just
yeah,
ego judging ego.
yeah, exactly. Ego's just ego. It's like, hey, man, why are you attacking me?
Yeah, exactly. And what's your
Yeah,
take on it?
that's really nice. Yeah, well, that's why the first thing that came to my mind was, how do we explain ego? I remember reading about it from a psychological perspective, is that it's actually there to help protect us. It's just
Mm.
that it's like anything, it can easily become imbalanced.
Yes.
But yeah, I love that explanation, because I was going to ask you how then, or any ideas as to how we
Mm-hmm.
can sort of identify it. So it's like, well, if especially if you're at the beginning of your journey and you don't know you're awake or anything like that, you go, well, how do I know my reaction's coming from ego or when it's not? And how do I catch it and go, oh, hang on, like I remember
Mm.
at the beginning, you're like, well, I don't understand that. I remember learning about ego when I studied psychology. So
Mm-hmm.
that's, I think, where my base knowledge comes from. And it's kind of like, oh, I'm here to protect you. Oh, I'm here as a survival mode. Like it's there for a good reason, but then it's become saturated or it's overprotective. And
Yes.
then, yeah, your spiritual self is kind of like, well, hang on, this is the real truth. That's just
Mm.
illusionary. And the
Yeah.
fact that ego, a lot of the time, is vibrating, as you said, from fear. It's not actually from a
Mm.
love vibration. So,
Mm-hmm.
spirit. Maybe this is a really basic way of understanding it. Is that true spirituality? Because I have said to a few clients how fucked off we are with fucking spiritual people who say they're spiritual and they're not fucking spiritual. They're not fucking spiritual at all. Is true spirituality is unconditional love. Boom. And then,
Mm-hmm.
like you said about ego, criticism, that critical conversation, critical mind, critical thinking, or, like they said something bad about me, that's all from fear, that's anxiety, it's all from that vibration. It's either one or the other, and there's a spectrum in between.
But it's even like, I think it's even ego when you're in ego as well when you start to label things like, oh, that person's spiritual, or that person's not spiritual, or that's a tree, or that's a bird, like if that's also ego. So ego likes to label things and create separation and us versus them. It's like you see the crazy religion, like, extreme Christianity versus the New Age.
True.
And, the New Age versus fucking Christianity. And it's just like, I think when you start to wake up, I would recommend to people the two powerful books that you can actually read to awaken yourself to your own ego and to the ego of our collective consciousness is the two books by Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now and The New Earth. And they are probably the only two books that I know of and highly recommend that actually take you on a complete consciousness shift of awareness to become aware of your own ego and your own madness. So it's and sort of the voice in your head that has all these stories and all these judgments and all the rest of it. And often the time you'll know when you're in ego is any time when you're judging yourself or other people, when you're in that, like you were saying, negativity or fear-based consciousness, or when you're comparing, or when it wants to feel bit better or bigger than other people. But it's also how you're feeling. So your feelings are your connection to the divine and to source, and it's your intuitive system. So generally when we've gone into ego, our feelings will tend to feel quite pinched off, anxious, stressed, worried, lack, scarcity, all of that sort of stuff. And then when we're kind of in our natural state of well-being, our emotions will feel very light and peaceful and calm, abundant, prosperous, feel really, really good. So in each moment, we're either in the two. I tend to find for those people, if you want to start becoming aware of your ego, is start becoming home into the present moment, start becoming aware of your breathing, the sensations in your hands, and you start to become the witness and the stillness that simply observes the voice in your head that likes to go on this rant. Like I was aware of my ego the other day that was like wanting to shout all these judgments at one of my family members, and rather than identify with that voice and, react to it and feed it and project it and, blame this family member for how I was feeling, it's like I just sat there and I said, I love, bless and accept the one within me right now who thinks her family member's a pain in the ass. And I just observe her like, I love you and I'm here for you. What's this really about, sweetheart? And often it's how we actually feel about ourselves, and our own perceptions, and we project that onto other people.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
I'd love to give another example of that happened to me recently. Because, and I found that so powerful when you said I bless and accept myself, the work that we've done. I was able to relate that to another client, and because she was riddled with perfectionism, and then she's seeing all these therapists saying, "Oh, you need to not be this, and you don't be anal, and let things go, and you need to do this, and you need to do that." So now she's got this like another layer of critical mind that she can't even be herself, and she's got a lovely husband who loves her, and I just turned around to her, looked her in the eyes, and went, "Aren't you lucky you have such a wonderful husband that loves you exactly as you are?" And I gave her the mantra of, "You are perfect exactly as you are right now." It's like, because it's like you've got all these therapists telling you you need to change, and that's the same voice that you were given when you were a child, that what you're doing isn't right. It's like, how about you just totally turn it on its head and say everything you do is right and perfect? And
but also
yeah,
embracing that part of you that judges you.
Yeah.
Like leaning into that part because it's shadow energy that needs to be reintegrated back into love. And that's the other thing, like these psychologists and therapists and that, it's like they, like you were exactly saying with this woman, it's like, oh, you got to try and do this and try and do that. And you're just fucking with more ego. And it's like, well, rather than just lean into the shadow that, and own that part of you that, feels like she's a selfish bitch. I love, bless and accept the selfish bitch in me. Fucking own it.
Yeah, because you've got to integrate it, confront it, integrate it, and then it vanishes. That's the thing. It's almost like you're constantly feeding, and I know Eckhart Tolle talks about pain bodies, but you're feeding this kind of external stuff you don't like about yourself. So if you bring it in, give it a big hug and say, "Hey, sister, come on in. All these bad things about yourself, come on in."
I love it. Exactly. It's like whatever you resist persists. It's like there's that beautiful work by Derek Rydell, and I love sitting on some of his live coaching calls because, he'll have women that will come on the call similar to like your client who has all this, I've got to try and be perfect and I've got to da-da-da-da. And he says, well, what's wrong with that? Like, why can't you just you know, accept that and be that, and that be okay with it. And there was one woman, he actually said to her, he said, why don't you own and claim your diva bitch? You want to be a fucking bitch. Because she downplayed her power to kind of fit and conform and keep the men in her life comfortable. And he said, well, what would actually ultimately happen if you owned your diva bitch? She would help you to set boundaries. She would help you to speak your truth, to free you, you know. And he said, like, it's all perfect, like it all matters, it's all helping you to grow and evolve. And yeah, you see women crying and they're like, yes, I own my diva bitch.
I want to be a diva bitch too.
Yeah.
I know, but that's the thing as well. As I'll just go on a little tangent here with women, is a lot of the times we are told to just sit there and be quiet. And this particular client, I won't mention any names; it's all confidential. But she mentioned something happening in her childhood and recognised, and she's worked with therapists that recognise it too. Something happened around that age, and I was like, great, let's do some inner child healing as well, because that's what I was kind of saying in the intro, is that a lot of our programming and our judgments happen when we're in our childhood. So it's very powerful to go back into that child and love and bless and accept that child within us, because that has a direct impact on our adulthood. What do you think about that?
Beautiful.
There's lots of different aspects to it. I think it's like, don't just do your inner child work, don't just claim your diva bitch. Like, it's a combination of all these amazing things, and then it's like the integration of self. It's like all of a sudden, boom! It's like I was actually watching Harry Potter last night. I've got into a really good routine, because I've played each film each week to educate my son with it, because it's all about wizards and magic, and I'm just in my seventh heaven, I tell you. I'm loving it. And it's all about, this is the Goblet of Fire, where he actually has to confront Voldemort. So I hope I said that right. Sorry, Harry Potter fans. Voldemort. And so he's manifested himself so much, he touches Harry's scar and it causes him pain. And it's like, it's all this big crescendo of building up. And it's interesting just watching that journey, even though it's fictional. I can relate to it so much, because there's all this kind of childhood stuff, and we watch Harry Potter grow up from a little boy into this teenager, and then having to confront like his own worst enemy, and then actually realizing it's a bit like the ego with separation, right? And the Buddhist teaching is that really we're all united, and really we're all one. So I go back to that thing about, fucking spiritual people who don't think they're spiritual, or they think they're spiritual but they're not. It's like, I can now step back and go, that's okay. It's like, that's okay. You want to kick me out of the spiritual community, or if you want to shun me or judge me, that's okay, because I don't care anymore. But 6 months ago, I really did care.
Yeah, of course, because part of our human nature is we want to be accepted. We want to be, we're community animals. We're group animals, and and it's perfectly normal to feel hurt. And I think it's like one of my favorite sayings by Matt Kahn, actually, and he just says, love whatever arises. So when you feel the anger, the judgment, the resentment, the hurtfulness, it's like that simple thing coming back to just love on whatever arises. Because I think that's part of ego, is we judge how we feel. I shouldn't feel like this, I should feel like that, rather than accepting, this is how I feel right now, and that's okay. Like, I still have days where I go, especially around my wild woman phase of my moon cycle, where I actually do not let myself out into society, because I am an absolute cunt. Like, I'm like, everything pisses me off. I'm swearing at the fucking drivers. I'm like, get out of my fucking way. And it's just like, and I used to judge her and be like, oh my God, she should just shut up and be quiet and a good little girl. But she's my wild woman, my face, and she brings up the stuff in me that I need to look at, the uncomfortable stuff, and heal and release it. And I've learned, it's like to learn to love and embrace and hold everything and the duality of everything. That's when, your liberation from suffering and pain and ego begins to dissolve, because there's no kind of conflict or separation. It's just all held by love, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Totally. And this was the example I was going to use earlier. And this may sort of trigger people with gaslighting. Because when it's just like meditation. It's just the practice of meditation, where you catch a thought, you become the observer, you catch it, you don't attach to it, and you go, what is that? you can sort of turn it around and then realize what it is, but don't attach to it and judge it. So recently, I fell out with some family. I won't mention who it was, but I think I've done this before. I fell out with some family, and one member of the family, and there was a heat wave over in Europe. So I thought I've got to do the done thing and say, hey, are you okay? Because I know that they struggle in the heat. I care about them. So I'm like, hey, are you okay? And they couldn't just write back saying, hey, darling, yes, we're fine. How are you? It came back with a gaslighting, and it was just so freaking obvious they were gaslighting me to do with another member family. And I just, instantly, I was just like so reactive, and it's that kind of like, oh fuck you, and then I thought of a really sarcastic comeback, because that's what our family is very good at doing. And I just thought, no, that doesn't resonate with who I really am. That's not okay. Like, don't need to play these games. Like, you can't fight fire with fire. That doesn't. It just causes more hatred in the world, right? And then they're going to retaliate. I'm going to. It's like a game of table tennis. So I just sat on it and sat on it, and I just went, that's okay. I'm just not going to react. They've said they're okay. That was the whole purpose of reaching out to them. So I know they're alive. I know they're okay. I don't need to respond to what they've mentioned. And I'm just going to leave it alone, because I can actually see really clearly what they're doing now, whereas in the past I couldn't. So do you know what?
Yeah.
Like, you just don't get my reaction. That's fine. It's just a conversation stopper. Yeah, but it's been more peaceful for me, rather than either carrying it around, for months, going, oh, fucking, I'm gonna fucking say this, I'm fucking, or by actually responding and going, oh, I'm gonna show them, I'm gonna, and I was like, no, I don't have to be clever about it, just let it go. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh, that's really empowering. That's a new space to be in.
Beautiful. Because that's the other thing too with the ego. It loves drama. It loves,
Yeah.
creating all of this negativity and whatever, and it thrives off pain and suffering. And I think, when you start to become aware of it, and like you said, you could start to see very clearly the ego and the gaslighting and all the rest of it. It's like when you've evolved out of a certain frequency of consciousness into a higher level of consciousness, you cannot. It's just law, energetic law. You cannot play into those systems anymore, because you're no longer a vibrational match, and you kind of can look down on it with sort of loving awareness and go, well, that's just fucking insane. I'm not going to play in that anymore,
Yeah.
And it's absolutely just fascinating when you do wake up from it and you just think, oh my God, I've been absolutely crazy the last few years, getting all upset about shit that doesn't really matter.
Yeah, and even another example of ego is I reached out to someone, a really dear friend of mine, and I said, look, I first of all did a bit of a sidestep and went, would you tell your friend the truth if you knew it was going to hurt them? Just to kind of put it out there, and like, what's your take on this? Like, should I say something or should I keep my mouth shut? And he said, yeah, if it's playing on your mind, say something. And I was like, ooh. And I went a step further and I said, okay, what if you're shit scared of losing their friendship? So I was just kind of like gently planting the seed that, I've got something to say, but I value our friendship so much. I'm really worried about this. And being totally indirect. And then he just blew up. And he was ringing. He was like, is this me? Am I the friend? You got to talk to me. You can't do this. And I was like, hey, look, I can't talk about this right now. Like, there was always different things going on. I was like, I just can't do this right now. Just chill. It's nothing bad. Don't worry. I was like, oh God, like, how do I get myself out of the situation? And then it got worse and worse, progressively worse throughout the day, and then throughout the night. And he was like, I'm done with this fucking shit. Like, he was really blowing up. And I was like, oh my God, like, I was trying not to create drama, and it happened anyway. So the next morning I woke up to these text messages because he wanted to talk about it late at night, but I was already in bed with my toddler. And that's it. I just hit down hard and went, right, excuse me. I was like, I've got my son. He comes first. It's late at night. I'm not going to pick up my phone late. I've told you this would wait. I told you I'll talk about it to you another time, which is the time we've arranged. And I've said, you know what? This is why I haven't spoken to you about it, because you're acting fucking mental. And you know what? This is the first time I've ever stood up to this friend. But
That's
I did.
good.
I just wanted to be a mirror, and I was like, look at your reaction. This is like, no wonder I'm so fucking intimidated, because this is how you react. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And then he then calmed down and was like, well, I think my reaction was fair because you've said this, you've got something to say, but you won't tell me. But, and I said, look, I will, just not now, okay? Nothing bad has happened. I haven't done anything bad. Just please, can we just start again? Just reset, because this is hard for me to process. So I was then speaking out of spiritual truth. I was like, look, this is just a really hard thing for me to say. I need time to process this, to get this clear in my head before I have the conversation with you. Okay, I shouldn't have said anything. So he was then calm and he was like, okay, if that's what you need to do, then you do it. And I was like, thank you. I was like, fuck. Like, it's like this big fucking bomb went off. And I was like, whew. But
Yeah.
it felt right that I just sort of reflected that back and went, stop, look how you're reacting. Like,
Yeah.
draw a line in this. It's not going to go bang, 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 like, a stupid little petty argument. It was
Yeah.
like, you're like, how much love I have for you as a friend. This is why this is difficult. So
Yeah.
just let me do it my way.
Yeah.
Back up, calm
Yes.
down.
Because I think that's the thing as well. Like, if you do find yourself, dealing with someone's very egoic reaction, like what you've experienced, where they're very negative and dramatic and want to attack and all the rest of it. And something I remember I learned years ago, and I actually initially learned this actually from Eckhart Tolle, was, is becoming very present and very still. And like what, your experience you learned is like you coming from that place of setting a healthy boundary and then calling to obviously become aware. But I remember years ago, I was dating this military guy who had a lot of post-traumatic stress disorder, and he literally would go off like a shotgun if I was 5 minutes late or if I missed the bus stop that we were meant to meet at. And I remember one night he was completely losing his shit because I'd missed the stop that on a street that we were meant to meet, and the bus went up the road, so I had to walk back. And he was going off his tit. And I remember I just felt this incredible peacefulness and this incredible stillness. And I just held space and I just observed him without reacting, without getting upset or crying like probably most people would. And then it was almost like when you're purely still and you're conscious and you're awake and you're aware and you don't feed into and react to their ego, it actually activates an awakening in them. And I remember, I always tell this story because it was one of the most profound moments. He's going completely off his tit on the side of the road. Yeah, you fucking missed the fucking bus stop, you fucking, like totally abusive
Oh my
relationship.
God.
I shouldn't even be there. But, and I just felt but it was a great lesson for me to experience. And I just watched him and observed him. And then all of a sudden, it's like a light bulb went off in him. And he just looked at me and he goes, holy fuck, I've been completely psychotic. And I said, yeah, you are. And he says, I'm so sorry. And I said, do you want to go and have dinner now? And he was like, yeah. It was almost like, he was like, where have I been? Like, what have I been doing? And so I tend to find that, what I find helpful is when I am in the presence of, someone that is in very ego, very triggered, is if you can just ground into your body, become aware of your breathing, become aware of the sensations in your hands, and just be fully present and not react with your own ego and your own pain body, I tend to find, because they've got nothing then to feed off, and then it's like it either activates an awakening in them or they run away and think you're fucking crazy because you're not saying or reacting or doing anything.
And this was really interesting, a bit of psychology here, because I watched lots of really cool series on Netflix. It seems like the world of Netflix, it just shows you what you need to watch, and then you learn so much. You go, wow, and there's like, here, have this one. And I know they've got like their algorithms of what you want to watch, but I've watched a few things, and so say you're in a conversation. So say me and you, Ellen, we bounce off each other. It's like, and then we have these little business orgasms. The energy increases, right? Energy increases. When you've got these shows, especially when you've got let's sort of like very simplistic terms, a good guy and bad guy, and they're trying just face each other off a little bit, is that they'll try and draw them into their own conversation. And this is even if you just watch NCIS, right? This is, and it's really interesting. The bad guys will always try to react to get a provocation. It's like an emotional charged response. Whereas the strength and empowerment of a good guy is to stay in their power, just like you're saying, stay present, do not get diverted, don't get off track, and just keep actually putting them into your vortex of and I would say things in an argument like, I wasn't talking about that, I'm talking about this. But you don't even need to do that. It's literally, if they're talking about pink squares and you're like, I asked you about the blue circle. Yeah, but pink squares are good. And you're going, when you saw that blue circle, what did you feel? You know, it's like it's staying on track, staying in your centeredness,
Yeah.
and not getting pulled off in that. Yeah, and
Yeah,
that's what.
drama. I think as well, it's good to note as well, though, like if you are, though, in a dangerous situation where you are being physically threatened
Yes.
or dangerous, absolutely remove yourself from that space. Don't obviously think, oh, I'll just stand here and be really fucking present. Like, it's like you need to protect yourself and as well, like, yeah, remove yourself from the space. And I think even like Eckhart Tolle was talking once with his wife when she had a heavily activated pain body, especially in his presence because he's so full of presence. And when her pain body and ego wanted to attack him, he actually said, I would just get up and I'd walk out of the house and it would trigger the fuck out of her. She'd be like, don't walk away
Yeah.
from me. And he was
Yeah.
just like, I'm just not going to feed it because I see it for what it is. But absolutely, like, yeah, also protect yourself if they are threatening physical violence or anything like that. Like, just remove
Yeah.
yourself from the situation.
Yeah.
You know, you don't
Yeah.
have to sit there and try and enlighten them.
That's your ego. That's your ego saying, "Oh, I can do this. I can fix people. I can heal people. I can relate to that."
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. You can never change
and
anyone or heal anyone.
it can be just as powerful to walk away and go. Oh, and I nearly said this to my friend. You know, I was just like, "Okay, you know what? This isn't the right time, or it's not the right time, or you know, you give me a call when you're in a good place. Then we'll have
Yes.
a discussion." And that could be like, "Oh, she's playing games with me," and you're like, "I'm not, dude." But I'm also not going to sit here and talk to someone angry. I just remembered I had this when I was a martial arts instructor. Now, martial arts is all about discipline, about controlling your emotions. You do not react. It's all about self-defense. It's not about attacking, right? It's not a boxing session. And this owner, so there were two owners of it. This guy owned a gym, very, very egotistical. I'd say narcissist, but everyone throws that word around. The other guy was a true martial artist. So they're both financial investors. Now, this guy who did not do martial arts, just had to make a big point of that. I remember he was a big guy as well, very tall, very like in your face. He'd go bright red and he gets angry, and he gets angry and shouts a lot. And I was in the office with him. Now he had the back to the door, and I was facing the door, so I had to get past him to get to the door. And I had to tell him that I was leaving working for him, and I was going to go and set my own franchise up. And he just went off, and he was standing. He's like, "You can't do this. You know, I want a franchise fee." Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, "Well, there's no franchise fee because I'm not paying for it. It's free. It's been given to me for free. So I'm, you know, end of the month, I'm going to go and set my own school up the road." And well, it was quite a long way up the road. And he just went off. He's like, "You can't do this. Oh no, this is," and I just held my space and went, "Okay, I'm not." And he thumped his hand on the desk. And I got really scared. And I went, "I'm not going to talk to you anymore unless you calm down." And I was shitting myself. I was trembling inside. And he still just would go off. I said, "No, I'm not talking until you calm down." I just said the same thing over and over and over. And I was like, "Right, I'm going to leave the office." And then, of course, I stood up, he stood up. And I was like, "You either let me out or you sit down and you calm down." And he did. And then luckily another guy came in. But and this was in a gym, right? So there's lots of people around. But that was so intimidating and scary to do. But I had to just hold that space. I'm like, I'm not just going to put up with this and be shouted at and stand it. He needs to know that he needs to calm down if this conversation is going to carry on. Very, very scary. I just had to share that because I think when we were saying about, you know, you got to keep yourself safe at all times, absolutely. But it is okay to stand up for yourself when you have to. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's healthy boundaries. Like it's not okay for you to speak to me like that, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
absolutely.
To make them realize their anger, I think that's the thing. It's like, you're getting angry right now, I'm getting afraid, so let's just stop, you know? And then they're just so in the moment, they can't see that. They can't see how they're coming across.
Yeah, exactly. Because the ego loves to project. It's everybody else but me.
Yes.
It's everybody else's fault, not mine.
I think I told you I left a message the other day. I was like, I had this random day and I woke up great. I was in a great mood. And then I was like, person after person after person. It was like attack, attack, attack. And I was like, is this me projecting having a shit day, or is this loads of people? Because I can't tell. And then somebody that I just observed. I didn't get emotional, and I was like, wow, they are being so defensive. This is actually them. Like, I had to really kind of dissect it and go, it's not actually me projecting. It was the world. I don't. It was really strange. It was really strange because I've been in this little bubble. I've been sick with my son, and it's just been us two. And all of a sudden, like, it's like you being in your cage over your wild woman phase. It's like, release the hounds. It's like then you let out into society, and it's like, oh, people don't.
Yeah.
They're not on the same sort of vibration as us, and we were all like do 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 do, in this nice little pink love bubble, and then it's like bang 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 bang, and I was like, whoa whoa whoa, like trying to run back home again and get in our little love bubble.
I know it can feel very intense, especially when you have that level of awareness and awakening and presence. It's like you're very more sensitive to seeing and observing and feeling people's pain bodies, egos, and the insanity of our world. It's almost like you're looking on the outside, looking in, and just going, "Wow, people are fucking intense. They're so serious."
And kind of contrary to what I was just saying before, how do you feel like, or what's the advice on, because we can't, this is I think this is the conundrum, right? As a spiritual being, we can't always call people out on their bullshit, because we can't go around going, oh, you're acting out of this, you're acting out of that, you're acting out of that, because then people are like, oh, who does she think she is? I mean, I did it to this one lady on the phone, and I said, I don't understand where your defensiveness is coming from. All I've done is this and this. I'm trying to have a conversation to make you see. And in the end, she was like, right, I'm going to put this in an email. And I went, okay. I just went, okie dokie, and just carried on about my business, because I just thought, she's not ready to hear what I've got to say. It's kind of out of context because I'm not having a therapy session. So have you got any views on that? Do you go around and sort of become people's mirrors and go, hey, that's your shit, not mine, see you later? Or do you sort of go,
well, basically, the way I look at it, then that's just like becoming a Jehovah's Witness, coming to people's doors and going, oh, you better follow Jesus or God or you're going to fucking hell, because we know the right way and we're here to wake you up and be your mirror and, show you God.
right.
And I think it's like, just stay in your lane, look after your shit, take responsibility for what's in you. And the more that you clean up your crap and become aware of your own ego, your own unconsciousness, and become more awake and aware, you'll find naturally, without you having to do anything, it's like people will either be inspired by that naturally, they'll either calibrate and awaken in your presence. Other people will feel, if they've got very, very heavy egos, will think, the ego will tell them that you're crazy, you're a weirdo. People even towards Buddha and Jesus, there were people that were very much in the ego that looked at Buddha and Jesus and thought they were complete nut jobs. So it's not your job or responsibility to try and wake other people up or, try and force and show them, their whatever. It's like, it's like that saying. I remember one of my exes taught me once. He said, when you point a finger at me, Ellen, there's always 3 fingers pointing back at you. It's like,
Wow.
and it's true saying, we're always like pointing the finger at other people, but it's like, are you actually looking at yourself and taking full responsibility for your own shit? And I found in my own experience, because I grew up in quite a violent household, with one of my brothers who was unfortunately had a very heavy pain body, a lot of violence and aggression. He's amazing now, but back in the day. And I remember when I went and took the responsibility for me and my healing, and I went away and did Vipassana meditation, and I came back and I was so still and calm, and I could just see the ego and I could see how everyone was suffering and I could see what was creating it all. And I stopped buying into it and playing into it. And I found, just by me doing my inner work and taking responsibility for my part in it all, it activated a massive awakening in my family. My brother then went and did Vipassana meditation. He healed, grew and evolved. My mother and father became a lot more peaceful and relaxed, and the whole house changed. And I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to try and convince them of anything. I didn't have to, point my finger at them and say, you got to sort your fucking shit out. It's just like, no, it's like, I had
to
respond
well to that.
What's that, sorry?
People don't respond well to that.
Yeah, exactly. They don't. I mean, you think about a Jehovah's Witness coming to your door and, trying to shove the Bible down your throat. People's instant reaction is to shut down, close off and go fuck off. Leave me alone. You know what I mean? So it's the same with anything, because that's just your ego trying to get them to change so you can feel better. where it's like no one's responsible for your feelings or how you feel. Feelings are personal. You're fully and wholly. It's like people at the moment, the whole woke movement. Oh, you offended my feelings. You know, it's your fault that I feel like this. It's like, no, fuck off. It's like
That's
feelings are
yours.
personal. It's your responsibility how you're choosing to feel. Nobody else. If you're offended by someone's truth or creative expression or whatever, go somewhere else. Remove yourself. You know,
Yeah,
it's like, yeah.
you know what's come up like this past year is when I've had kind of fallings out with my family on that is I've tried to sort of go, hey, let's talk about this. Like, I know you said, it's like, oh, this has been triggered, or you're feeling this way. It's like, good, let's get this out in the open. It's not about having a confrontation or wanting to argue. This is
Yeah.
about working through something. So let's get all our guts out on the table. Let's
Yeah.
talk about it. How do we feel? And then we can work through it and accept it and sort of come out the other side.
Yeah.
But most of the time people go, no. And
Yeah. And some people,
yeah, go on.
I know, yeah, I was just going to say some people don't want to do that. And I mean, I know like a few years ago, just very, very quickly, I was working over in China and one of my colleagues, we were sharing a hotel room together. And anyway, I could slowly feel over a period of a week, she was starting to get very snappy and intense at me. And I'm thinking, what the fuck is going on here? Anyway, came to a heads and we were in the hotel room one day and she just lost her shit with me, and it was this vomit of you did this, you did that, you didn't wait for me, you did this and this. And I'm just like, what the fuck? And I was like, and I just sat down and I just held space and I held presence and I just listened to her. I didn't, try to defend or try to, say she was wrong or how, whatever. It was just, I'm like, okay, she's obviously upset, she's hurting. Let's, like you were just saying here, it's like, let's just talk about this. Let's work through this, And I remember by the end of it, I just listened to her rant and rave and I just said to her, I'm sorry that you feel like that. It wasn't my intention for me to hurt you or anything like that. I wasn't even aware of that, and I'm sorry you're hurting. And then we spoke about it and resolved it. And, we're still mates today sort of thing. And it turned out she was just very tired and very sensitive and very on edge, and anything that anyone said, But I realized in that moment, I'm like, this is not my shit. This is her wanting to project and blame someone else for whatever's going on in her personal life. So I think it's to remind yourself not to take anything personally. And some people will come with you and work with you to heal and resolve. And other people, like you just said, will shut down and be like, fuck off, I'm not interested. And it's like, well, you can do the best that you can. Some people will grow with you and go with you, and other people will just devolve and go somewhere else, and you can't force and change that. It's
I
just,
think that's a beautiful example and takeaway. If you think about a takeaway for our listeners today is, rather than trying to figure everything out all the time, and reading books is an amazing way to gain insight and shift our consciousness. But yeah, just to know that it's there. It's like, hang on, ego is all about separation. It's all about self. It's all about, like you against them, as you were saying. Whereas when we can come from a place, a real spiritual place of unity and identifying we are all one at the end of the day, we're all our true source and being, accepting that we are all at different levels and different stages. And the most important phrase I've ever come out of this is that's okay. It's
yeah,
like, you see someone who's angry, that's okay. That's their journey. As long as it doesn't affect me, as long as it doesn't endanger me or my family, that's okay. That's your stuff to process. That's your journey. That's your stage. And I'll just finish with one example. Someone's going through their especially men. I have found this a lot with men. Well, it's women as well, but there's a lot more encouragement for women. So that's what I think I need to say. Where you're there for everybody, and it's all about other people, and it's like, oh, I've got to be there for my son, I've got to be there for my dad, I've got to be there for, you've got to be the one holding the family together. And I had to step in and say, actually, they're on their own journey. All you can do is hold space and offer a limited amount of support. But this is about you. This is about looking at you, and like you said, your own inner work. That's where we can really make the change and the significance in yourself, because we're trying to deal with his own inner child healing and he's trying to be there for his dad. And I'm like, we need to let go of that a little bit. You can be there for someone, but you can't take over their entire and be responsible for their entire life and their suffering. You can't do that. It's identifying, and it sounds so contrary because it's like it's saying we're on a separate journey, but we're all one. And it's like, oh, we're all like different expressions. It's like coffee. You know, there's like different types of coffee. You have different ways to have your coffee. You can have mocha, you can have this. You know, it's all coffee, but it's different.
Yeah,
Do
exactly.
you have a takeaway for our listeners on ego that they can kind of mull
Um,
about?
I think like a vision that Spirit gave me the other day, which was really interesting. It was like a pink ball of love and like a circle that was just filled with, you know, beautiful pink light. And then, but within that pink ball was like at the base of the ball was very dense, dark, grey, black, you know, heavy purples and pinks. And then it kind of thinned up then into a middle sort of section of the circle where it was a bit more light. And then right at the top, it was just like this beautiful white, soft pink. And the message that came through, and then outside of the circle was this stream of love consciousness coming through. And it said, everything is love, even like ego is just a denser vibration of love playing out in human physical form, you know? So it's just, it's all bandwidths of love consciousness just vibrating at different frequencies. So ego is that obviously at the very, like when you're identified with ego and playing in the realms of ego, it's just a very dense, heavy love frequency. And then as you awaken and, you know, grow and evolve in consciousness, then you reach those higher states of, you know, love and beauty and well-being, which is those higher, you know, lighter colors in the circle, so to speak. So I think the thing is that at the end of the day, everything is love, all is love, everything's serving you, the good, the bad, the ugly, the in-between. It's all perfect. It's all there to serve and support you in your evolution. And just love, bless, and accept the one within you that is what's known as ego. You know,
And
it's
yeah,
self-nurturing.
and I think this is the the classic when people go, oh, well, what about all the bad stuff that happens? You know, it's like if there's a God, then why do we have pedophiles? You know, the classic question. It's like this is a very hard one to get your head around, but I'm sure you'll agree with me, Ellen, that when we connect with source, God, love, energy, and we ask the same question, because it really burdens heavy on us as well,
Mm.
is it is still divine, and
Yeah.
it's almost I'd like to just, this is a really good way, because I'm a very visual learner, right? Another way of thinking of things, right? And I'm really into sci-fi, so this may help some fans out there, right? So imagine you've got the whole galaxy and cosmos, and then you've got little tiny planet Earth as just one planet, which it is, because we forget this in our daily lives. We've got beautiful Jupiter and Venus and Saturn and all these amazing planets, right, that influence us, and the moon. And if you believe in extraterrestrials, this will be easy for you. But the concept, if you can imagine that our souls and archangels and ascended masters, you know, we're all within the big cosmos and galaxy. And this is very tantric as well. That we elect and choose to, and Buddhist, to have an experience, a lifetime on planet Earth. And that actually this planet is one of, or it is the hardest places to exist. And it is the place to learn all of our lessons, which is a combination of karmic from our past lives, you know, everything that we kind of need to experience. And it may kind of help you know, I think in India they accept the stark contrast between wealthy and poor, you know, and we go, oh my God, it's terrible. You've got these terrible slums and people dying on the street. This is terrible. You know, wealth should be equal. But it's something actually to do with our lineage and our lessons that we need to learn. So when we are confronted with the really, really dark, yucky side of human beings, it's somehow part of the whole divine process. Everything is God, everything is love, just as you say, and that it's here for us to learn and here to show us that contrast between the light and the dark.
Yeah, absolutely. As well, just quickly on that note, the word that was also coming through around that is from Jesus, which is forgive them for they know not what they do.
Yeah.
And when you are deeply in your ego and you're deeply in that unconsciousness, and you see it with like people like, you know, the wars and the pedophiles and all of the rest of it, they're so disconnected from their inner source and from their love and God consciousness that they are completely unaware of actually what they're doing. When you're hurting, you hurt other people. When you are in that place of abuse, you're not only abusing yourself, you're abusing other people. And I think Jesus summed it up beautifully: "Forgive them, for they know not what they do." Because it's absolutely true. People that do incredible, horrific things to other people are completely fucking unconscious. They are not awake and aware at any level.
Yes, I think that it helps. like, I wish that was like the first thing I learned, because I've really struggled with that. You know, you kind of go, well, if that's that, then what's that? And, you know, like trying to suss out the world. But yeah, that level of acceptance, it's a tough one.
It is.
But that's the higher consciousness. So, and I was actually going to finish on, because even just with this series of podcasts, Ellen and I have gone through such huge transformation. And I'm actually resonating more with the Sacred Love Queen, boom, which I'm loving it. Every time I say it, Ellen, every time I say the Sacred Love Queen, it's like this big pink bubble. It's like my hands come to my heart center, and then this big pink like bubblegum bubble comes up. My hands rise up, and I go boom, like a flower opening. It's just fucking awesome. And I'll say, you know, me and Ellen had a business orgasm, because it literally was. It was like, I'm the love queen. I think we're still waiting, aren't we, for how you're going to come through, Miss Ellen?
Oh, yeah, no, I'm so yeah, I guess, I mean, I've obviously told you, but yeah, I sat ayahuasca last week, and she's just completely turned me inside and out. So I'm actually currently in a state, in a consciousness where everything's completely dissolved, complete, no labels, no business, nothing. I'm just being. So I'm literally being told this week by spirit to just rest and do absolutely nothing. And then the next part of what I need to know will come through at the right time to guide me on the next steps. But basically, yeah. So I guess for me, Summary, for years, you know, I've worked in business and with women and wealth creation and business creation. And literally I've been given guidance in the past week to let all of that go. Everything I've built, it's all dissolved, and to move down the path of potentially working with men, helping them to heal their relationship to their feminine energy. So I'm just going with the flow, because at the moment I'm just like, what the fuck?
Hey, I'm impressed you even got on. I'm impressed you're even conversing with me right now. I thought you'd still be in the field going,
Oh yeah,
And
it's like, are you there, Ellen? No, I'm just
yeah,
meditating.
yeah. And can I say as well, I really do feel that this whole awakening of the divine feminine in the first part of the year that's what's being called to transfer onto the masculine, because those guys need help. Because not
Desperate.
only have you mentioned someone, I think, is it Katrina Ruth or someone else, who's just really focusing on men now.
Yeah.
I've just seen there's another lady, her name's Sasha Cobra. She did a, I actually remember her name. She did a Netflix series that was on last year, and it was all to do with tantra work. And she has just come out to say that she's only, hang on, she actually worked with men, only men, right at the beginning of her career. And then
Wow.
she's done both. And now she's going back to just men again, because she did an interview all about, it was a podcast I saw it on, and it was all to do about working with men. So I think that is really, it's not my calling, but it's definitely pulling a lot of practitioners that way. So I think,
Yeah.
celebrate
Definitely.
and big congratulations. So
Thanks,
yeah,
Amanda.
so the reason I mentioned it is because I don't know if we're going to continue with the Witches Tea Party as a podcast, or whether we're going to evolve that into something else.
Yeah.
So
Go with
yeah, I was going to say, watch this space, because it just on this podcast, it's like, who are we now? That's not even who we are. Are we
yeah.
witches? We are witches. There's a part of
Yeah.
us are witches.
Yes, exactly. It's an aspect of the divinity. I think it's like when you wake up and you realize, you know, you're an eternal, infinite, conscious being of unconditional love. It's like, you know, you're all of it, you know, and it's an ego, I think, likes to try and label things and put things into boxes so then other people can kind of, yeah, understand. But yeah, I don't know. It's like, I think I love the saying, you know, it's like you make plans and God just laughs at them,
Yeah,
because you just never know. You think, yeah, this is it. You know, like I was like, yeah, that's
yeah.
it. I'm a Welsh shaman. I'm doing fucking money and business shit for the rest of my life. And then literally last week, God just fucking laughed at me and said, yeah, no, we're not doing this anymore.
Oh, it's like, so many women. I work with so many women, and they were like, "Oh, I didn't think having a baby was going to be like this. I was going to have it at a different time, and this and like." And it's like, yeah, that's the biggest life lesson. As soon as you get pregnant, it just
Mhm.
seems like, here you go, girlfriend, because nothing is as it seems from then on. You know.
Yep, that's it. It's like,
Didn't even know my body could do this stuff. It's like, what is happening? Anyways, well, look, if we don't continue, it has just been a blessing and an amazing I've really, really enjoyed these chats. I just love it
Love
because it's
that.
just my energy always increases after we've come on, and I've had a lot of clients and friends say how much they've helped them,
Oh,
even just get
lovely.
through a tough patch. So, um,
Fantastic.
yeah, if we do come back, I think we'll resurrect and reincarnate as something else. I'll try and jump on and put the notes on so people can find us.
Lovely.
Yeah. All right, my darling. We'll have a gorgeous
Beautiful.
day.
Thanks,
And
Goddess.
I'll see you, Ellen, in about 10 minutes after I get a cup of tea, and everybody else somewhere on the consciousness path. What
Yeah.
we'll do, we'll put our contact details on. So if you did want to reach out to us, Ellen, should I still put ellenserena.com or do you have
Yeah,
another?
didn't put that. Yeah, still put that for now. And then because I'll probably end up setting up a redirect, whatever the new thing that God wants me to fucking create.
We are his pawns. We just go with what he says.
Exactly.
She.
She. Beautiful.
Awesome. All
Thanks,
right.
Goddess. So much love.
You too. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.